Bluff Town Council regular meeting. Roll call.
Linda Sosa,
Jim Sayers.
Luanne Hook.
Brant Murray.
Ann Leppanen.
Aaron Nelson serving as town manager.
It is 6:00 p.m. So what we're going to do is first approve the Bluff Town Council regular meeting minutes of February 7th, 2023. Has everybody received them? Are there any changes, modifications, points of discussion?
They look good to me, Mayor. I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Then the minutes are approved unanimously. This is public comment. There will be a 3-minute time limit for each person wishing to make a public comment. If you exceed the time limit without permission, the meeting controller will mute you. Is there anyone who wishes to make a public comment? And if there is, either unmute yourself or raise your hand. Jim Hook.
Thank you. I see that on your item number 2 will be the discussion on the application to vacate streets and alleys, but it also says, and work on public lands. I found your applications to vacate property, but I don't see any way of addressing the question that I put out to you last September. So maybe, I'm hoping maybe in your discussion today, you'll address that. Thank you.
Well, that was nice and succinct. Thank you. Anyone else who has a public comment? I'll wait a minute. I will comment that we actually, the town manager and I are actually in the community center because we have someone doing a presentation. And what we're going to do is flip the screen around so that the presentation can be made. And then if the council has any questions, you can ask. I will probably turn my computer around so that the manager can manage the meeting. So any public comment? All right, then it's 6:03, and this is the presentation on child care facilities grant possibilities, and my notes are a little confusing here. Well, actually, I'm just going to ask that you introduce yourself so I don't have to keep fumbling for folks.
It's really nice to meet you. Thanks for coming tonight.
Yes, it's really nice to meet you. We actually have 4 people in the audience, so I'm going to.
And if you want to like pull up a chair, whatever, however
Yes,
you
oh,
want to
yes.
do it, I know it's a little better.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to just give you that.
It works. Hello, everyone. My name is Corinne, and Peggy is here with me. We're from Care About Childcare at USU Eastern, located in Price, and we cover the whole southeastern Utah down here into San Juan County. And we just wanted to introduce ourselves and what we can do. We're really looking to find those that are interested in starting childcare businesses here in San Juan County, especially the lower half in Blanding and Bluff. We are our parent company is the Department of Workforce Services, just through the state of Utah and their Office of Child Care. And then we're funneled down to help this specific region. We just have some grant opportunities available for those that are interested in starting a child care business, and we're here for support and help. So we just want to get that word out there. So if any of you on Zoom know of anyone, or over here anyone, if you guys here know of anyone, we would love to help them out. Some of the grants that we have are rural Utah grants that can help with materials for programs as well as startup costs. And there's a lot that goes into it. I know starting a business can be scary, but that's why we're here to help support and kind of lead them through the process.
One of the questions that I had, and this is probably a greater town council discussion, is whether we would be able to put information on our website to link it to, or flyers or something like that to kind of help get the word out. I know we have a lot of people who listen to our calls, which is great. But could you talk about maybe some other avenues in which people can find your resources, or what we could do to help?
Oh yeah, you can find us on our website. It's eastern.usu.edu/childcare. And that will give you information about what we do, how we can support parents as well as providers and potential providers. And then it has contact information for us at the office.
Does anyone on the council have a question or comment about this?
No, just thank you. Early childhood education, I think, is the key to successful learning. So great job.
Thank you.
Does anyone-
I have a question. Can a person have a small business for childcare in their home?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Their website, there's just rules and regulations they'll have to follow to have it.
Thank you.
So I have a question about the funding. If the town of Bluff and Utah Deneva are able to, let's say in the next year, occupy the old school that we purchased, which is called the Cooperative Culture Center, would a town qualify to be able to get funding for a daycare in that building?
Oh, that's a good question.
I would think so, but we would be able to do the rural outreach grant, which is just materials. But as far as the bigger grant, you'd have to talk to Children's Society.
Yeah, we have another Care About Child Care agency that's located in the Salt Lake region. They are in charge of a new grant going out called the Employer Child Care Startup Grant. They just released it, and there's an informational meeting on Thursday, so we don't have a lot of information right now. But from what we understand is if there's an individual that wants to start a child care business, they can partner with a business and receive funding. The business would have to apply for that to receive funding to help the individual. I know it can kind of get confusing, but they would own the business and just partner with an already established business.
Does anyone else on the council have a question? Because I am going to open it up if there's anyone in the community that has a question. I think this is really one of the things that came up in our strategic planning was how do we grow childcare for the people who need it in an area where we just don't have it available. Anyone from the council first?
Mayor, I think the CCC idea is a great idea, and there's space there, and there's community there. There's a lot going on. So I just right off the top, it just seems to me that that's a really logical idea.
So if no one else from the council has a question, first I'll go to the audience. Does anyone in the audience have a question?
I've got a comment.
You can make a comment.
Does a comment work?
Yeah.
So,
Jared, can you identify yourself?
Town Council, can you hear me? I am Jared Barrett.
Got thumbs up, you're good to go.
Okay. We had the opportunity to meet with Corinne and Peggy for about an hour earlier today. Sarah is with me. She's our hotel manager. One of the things that we've observed over the past 5 years is we have nearly 100 employees, and we've observed that. That's a headache. That's why I don't have any more hair. But we have a lot of the people who come apply, or the people who can't sustain their job, a lot of the challenge surrounds childcare. So we are here as an interested business in trying to partner with, help, facilitate, support, whatever that we might be able to do. Anne had mentioned, and in the strategic planning, we had talked about childcare as one of the things that the town council had been considering or talking about as an interest to the town. And so we came in support of that idea and that concept. This particular grant, I just looked it up online. I'll forward it to the mayor. She can forward it out. It is a $5 million grant to the state of Utah. And it could provide some much needed kind of startup funds. I know the funds that Corinne and Peggy had talked about are in the tune of $5,000 to $10,000, but to retrofit a facility or something like that might cost a bit more. And so I would like to maybe ask the council to consider, not necessarily respond tonight, but maybe consider at the CCC, maybe one of the outbuildings there, the old elementary school, the standalone buildings that are not waiting for a fire suppression system. Maybe one of those could be considered to be a child care facility. I think the overall idea that was discussed in the strategic planning session, and I would love to be involved, and it makes a little more sense to me, or be a part of that CCC to be a learning center. And I know that there was discussion of having that be part of the cultural center. And one of the guests that we had there from the state said, man, put the name, what did she say? Economic development or creativity or something to that effect in that. And doors can be opened for finances, for monies to coming in. Anyway, the idea of that childcare to be part of a learning center after school program, I think there's some real synergy with that, as well as helping a lot of our folks get into the workforce, whereas now there's just no real option for them.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online? Any council member? I think this is really helpful. What we'll do is talk about, I think with workforce, it probably is a good time to have that conversation about whether we can put a link or should put a link on our website, because we've been working with workforce, as you know, through the food pantry and them coming down and having a representative here to be able to get information out to the community. I just want to mention to the council that in anticipation of this, I have read through our acquisition and development agreement with Utah Denebakea. Having a child care is a permissible use within our agreement. It does not violate our non-compete clause with San Juan School District. I confirmed that last week with the superintendent of the school district. We do have restrictions on after-school learning programs, but there are ways to have programs that we can look at that don't violate it. So I have been doing some research, and we'll get that on a work session. Anything else you'd like to say? Oh, Sarah.
I just want to contribute my voice.
Say your name.
Yeah, I'm Sarah Barrett. And I just wanted to say that I've watched so many employees come in, and I feel like there's a huge need. And I know that's being expressed repetitively, but I think that it's easy for us to let this slip off of the plate because it's not affecting any of us in this room personally, or on the screen personally. But I am working with women and people every day that are facing this need, and it is a need. It's not just a desire. So speaking for the people, the employees that we all care about, I just want to see it taken and not let go right away, because right now is an essential time. When we were talking with Corinne and Peggy, there's kind of a 1 to 2 year window with the grant that's open right now, which could provide a lot more funding than is usually out there for daycare. So I think right now it's a really opportune time for that. But I also, in talking to them, heard what I understood was if there is a desire and people to push it forward, there's funding, there's resources, there's support available. It's just finding someone who will make it happen.
Thank you. Well, I know that it's, like I said, it came up in our strategic planning and we'll be having some meetings, but we'll take a closer look and we really appreciate your coming.
Thank you.
The weather isn't the best for driving in the evening, but thanks a lot for doing it. And
Thank
if
you.
there's nothing else, I will turn the computer around and go into the rest of the meeting.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I want to give you guys, so this is just a brochure. It kind of just talks about who we are. There's links on the back to our social pages. Thank you. And for more information on that employer startup grant that's going on, thank you so much.
We're getting a few materials from the presenter, Corinne. So thank you all for coming. All right, moving to number 1 on unfinished business, update on Bluff Airport maintenance by Javiation and the opening of bids. So if you remember, we had a conversation about what opening the bid would have to consist of. And so I reached out to Chris McEnany. And basically, this can be a manager function, an administrative function. So what we would do is have the bids opened at the date and time that's in the bid notice. And it would require 1 council member or 2 council members and our manager. The bids would be opened at that time. There doesn't need to be a record of it other than keeping a list of what the bids were, the amounts, and just verbally out loud. The public is invited to attend, so we would do it in the auditorium at, I believe it's 3 o'clock on March 1st. And so that's how that works. And then at a later point, the council would consider the bids and go through the rest of the process with the company. But for opening, it can be done administratively. And the last thing on that piece that I have is the contract came in for me to sign, and I did do that, and it was a little rough start trying to sign it because they wanted electronic. I haven't figured out how to do it on this computer, so it did go in on Friday with a signature. It references the $12,500 that we would be paying. I think it's $12,500 that we would pay as our part. Any questions or comments on that?
No, is there a vote needed?
Nope, we've done it. Thank you. And Jim Hook gave it a thumbs up. And I'm not quite sure how the process plays out, but Aaron and I will take a look at it and get everything set up for the 1st. And then if I just get 1 or 2 volunteers for 3 o'clock on March 1st, that would be great.
Thank you.
Moving to number 2, update on public hearings for requests to vacate alleys, rights of ways, and work on public property. I appreciate Jim Hook's comment because when I went back and looked at my notes and looked at our website, we do not have that piece on there, like an other category. So we'll get something on there hopefully this week that allows for an other type of request related to public roads, highway, or public roads or alleys or rights of way. And we'll try to get that done. A number of people have asked questions about what do they need to do on the website. There are directions on what you need to do. And that is the process. There's not a method for deviating. If somebody listening to this or looking at it thinks, I need a deviation from what they're asking, please ask to get on the agenda so the whole public can hear it rather than for us to be answering multiple similar but not quite the same question. So just contact either Aaron or myself to get on the agenda, and we'll try to address these issues as they come up. Any questions from the council on that? So looking at number 3, status reports on committees. Bluff's Planning and Zoning Commission didn't have a meeting in this time frame between our meetings. So B would be Active Transportation Advisory Committee meeting. And what I'll just do is turn that over to either Luanne or whoever Luanne's designating to do the update.
I can, well, let's see, Molly is on the meeting. Can I designate Molly? Molly was there and Aaron was there today. You have a preference?
I can, is it just a quick update?
Yes. And then
Okay,
talking about the letter of, the revised letter, if you could.
Sure. So I had heard some requests for including a little bit more information about the event date to make that clear, changing Bluff Act to make it clear it's the Bluff Active Transportation Advisory Committee that was changed. Otherwise, it's all the same content. So if there's any specific edits content-wise or information that you think needs to be added, I was surprised to see that it needed to be approved again.
And we did add that it's from the Town of Bluff, the Bluff Active Transportation Advisory Committee, and Bike Utah's who it's from. And then we put a link to the draft map and called it a draft map so that they can kind of see the larger area. And then there's an RSVP to our new address, which is activetransportation@townofbluff.org. And other than that, it's all pretty much the same. So we're just ready to send it out to our stakeholders so that they can get it on their calendar. So one last any question before that happens?
No, I don't think we were asking to have the council review it and approve it again, because the process was, as I understood it, and I could be wrong, the process we were going to use is Luanne and Jim would work with the committee to revise it, and then it could go out. And so I think the only thing, looking at it, I'm glad that you added the word advisory. I think that's important that the whole title be there. Again, I talked with you, Molly, about this. I feel like this, using the words like communities, plural, makes it sound like it's a broader reach than Bluff, where I thought the focus is really Bluff and the active transportation plan. But I'm not going to ask to have anything changed from me. So council, what does everybody want to do?
Send it out.
I have a question. We've basically have 2 letters because one of them was in our agenda package, which was has some changes, and which I really liked, by the way. And then this letter that came in 3 hours ago. And so which letter are we talking about?
Sure, the most recent letter, so that the one that was in the packet was the committee wanted to make a couple more edits today. So the most recent one that you have is the one that we're asking for.
So that's another question for me. I feel like we really need to get back to our rule, which is things come in Thursday. Agenda items come in Thursday. Letters, whatever presentations come in on Thursdays. This came in, 3 hours ago, and we've got to get back to our own rules because we need to treat everybody the same. And so and your committee that's wanting to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's really important to do it, meet your deadlines and stuff. So I'm requesting that people who are not on the council get things in Thursday. The council gets things in Saturday. And what we've passed is if something isn't in on time, it's on the next agenda.
And this was just a follow-up. We weren't sure why it was on the agenda, so we just presented it again with the tweaks from the council. But yeah, we're on anything that needs a decision, we'll definitely get it in early.
Brant?
I think last meeting we talked about this committee having standard, and making adjustments like this to me is not a big deal. I don't think they needed any kind of approval tonight. Last meeting I mentioned, let's move forward, and I feel that way. So I don't want to, split hairs about trying to get a letter out. Let's just get it out and keep rolling.
So one of the things I'm doing to kind of address getting us back on track is hopefully by next week I'll write a policy. I'll do the policy in writing so the council all has it and it's posted, telling everybody. Thursday's the deadline for getting it to me so that it can get included in the draft agenda that I try to send out on Friday. That gets circulated to the council and then posted on Sunday. So I'm trying to address that, getting everybody back on track with that.
And if I could just add a comment to that, if the whole agenda came out on Thursdays, that would be even more ideal. It would give everybody that Thursday and Friday to prepare for the next Tuesday. We don't have the last minute scramble. Maybe that's a bigger goal than what you want to do right now, but I think that would be the ideal setup. The rest of stuff can wait a week.
In a real world, that would be a really good idea. The fact that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for me are almost completely filled with meetings. There's no way I can get to the agenda till Thursday or Friday to be able to get it out on Friday, and Friday is even a stretch. Aaron and I are working on fine tuning some processes, but for the next few months, I think we're just going to have to live with the way we've done it until we've gotten through some of these other hurdles of making adjustments. But I do realize it's hard for people who don't, work over the weekend to be able to get to it, but I'm trying the best I can do to get it out on Friday, so.
No, I know, and I'm not complaining.
And I know you're not. No, I know you're not. And Aaron and I've been in some ongoing discussions about how we kind of fine stream things, which kind of leads into something about that fine streaming is for part of this policy will be like, we've got a lot of committees now. We've got like 5 or 6 committees that the town has sanctioned. And so when people are committee chairs, it's really important that the chair understand that their job is setting the agenda, scheduling the meeting, getting everything out to folks. It's not going to be possible for the council to maintain what the council does and do administrative duties on 5 committees right now. So just a heads up that that's coming down the pike next week, I hope, in a policy that says, reminder. Anything else? Good job on the letter. I'm assuming it's going today, or did it already go?
No, I wanted to wait and make sure.
Thanks.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Lou. All right, number C. Letter C, Cooperative Culture Center Design Review Committee's meeting. It was today. Jim, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. It was Valentine's Day, so we had sort of a love fest.
I must
kind of like we just had here. Dudley was on our agenda. Dudley Beck came on our agenda today to ask the Design Review Committee if the BARC, if BARC could put a holding space to hold dogs, a temporary holding area for dogs right north of the portables on the CCC grounds. Between the fence and the portable, it's about 4 feet wide and about 30 feet long or so. They've run out of space. They've got several dogs that are sort of in limbo right now. And that's about all we can say about it. That we would bring it to the council. It's not a kennel; it's just a temporary holding facility, and I assume someone's going to be taking care of the dogs. They've got the food and all that stuff while they're in there and keeping it clean. And there was some discussion about all the dogs that are being brought into Bluff and so forth. Woody Lee was on the meeting, the director of UDB, and it was noted that many of the animals coming into Bluff that need care are, many if not most, are being brought in from south of the river. So I left it at that. I don't think the DRC is a decision-making body, and I'm seeing that Dave Conine will also bring this to the UDB board to see if they would approve of that. Technically, the property will one day fall under UDB, but there is an office right there, and the person who works in the office has expressed that she doesn't really like it. But I'm just going to leave that right there as part of my report, and you can deal with that. Not right this moment, but whenever the mayor decides that it should happen. If there are any questions about that, be sure and let me know. The second item on the agenda, in fact, most of the agenda was kind of wiped out by the sort of the routine things that we do on the agenda. We tabled most of everything in favor of a grant opportunity with the EPA. It's really part of the Inflation Reduction Act, and they've got carloads of money in the EPA, and there is a section of the EPA called the Environmental Justice section, in which there are 2 grant opportunities, and one is for government to government, if you're interested in looking that up, which is almost definitional of what we have with UDB, a municipal government partnership with a community-based nonprofit. That's the target of this money. And it's really focused on health and the environment, but it is very, the goal of the grant is broadly enough worded that really supporting this kind of a partnership in order to accomplish great things in the future is really part of the grant money, and we are going to move on this pretty quickly. We really kind of determined today that we should try to get this the grant application finished by the end of March, and to that end we're going to be talking about it next meeting, talking about the actual project. In fact, I asked, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, because that's what I was intending to do. I want to see a piece of paper with a project on it. And I'm going to have one, I'm going to have mine, and they're going to have theirs. And we're going to see how this shakes out. Beyond that, there were no other concerns other than it was interrupted. Of course, Woody had gotten word from the cops that there was some incident in Montezuma Creek, an unfortunate incident. I have not heard anything more about that, but it was nice to have Woody online, and he's in favor of this, and so we're working on it. Did I miss anything?
I think the only thing is that I gave an update on the USDA grant, that I had one more piece to throw in, and then we'd send the whole packet over to the DRC to take a look at, but that's moving along.
Yeah, thank you. If there are any questions, I will try to answer them. Thank you very much.
All right, then Bluff's Solar Eclipse Planning Committee, the San Juan County Solar Eclipse Committee have not met since our last reports. So Bluffs Roads Committee met today with Michael Havikan and Luanne Hook and myself. Either Michael or Lou, do you want to give the update? I'm not sure if Michael is on or not, so.
Yeah, I don't see Michael. You want me to do it, or do you want to?
Oh, sure, that would be great.
Okay. Well, you had several things on the agenda. One was street signs out at Copper Cliffs. The subdivision out there, the street signs aren't a town responsibility, but traffic control signs, we may need to look at the intersection, especially at the highway. We'll see how UDOT applies to that. In my traffic sign inventories, I was under the impression from the county that all those are UDOTs right along the highway. So anyway, we talked about that. Let's see. We've got money in the C Roads Fund. We were looking at what we could spend money on, that kind of thing. Looking at our money that's available we still have a little bit from the transportation grant. So if we have another project, they will still match us 50-50. So that's good. We're looking at the fall to do some more maintenance, some pothole fixing and some shoulder work Michael's got his eye on. And then also looking at engineering services to have an engineer on our side if we do any more chip sealing through town on some of the dirt roads, and looking at black locust. It would take somebody to kind of oversee that for us. Yeah, I think that was pretty much what we talked about today. So nothing big planned, but we will do some more maintenance in the fall.
Thanks. So I think that Michael said there are 3 more distributions that'll come in this fiscal year. So we'll be sitting in pretty good shape by the time we get the fall.
Mm-hmm.
Then the playground committee update on estimates for equipment demolition. I've been talking with Dave Bastian at, I never get the name right, Canyon Lands Discovery Center. And he's offered to write a grant on the outdoor recreation. I think I mentioned it last week. It would be you could do an outdoor classroom and the equipment would be playground equipment. But one of the questions he had was, if we took the playground equipment out, what would the cost for demolition be? Because it could be either written into a grant or it could be used as in-kind contribution. And so I talked with the San Juan School District, and there was no recommendations as to people who could take out playground equipment. But then I reached out to Helgerson Property, and today I had an oral quote of they thought it could be done for around $1,500 that take and remove. And again, I'm not getting a bid for us to do it or making a commitment to do it, but it did need to be put into this outdoor recreation grant that Dave will work on. And I asked the playground committee themselves if they could work with Dave Bastian and get information together so that, they're part of the decision making and gathering any information about the playground. And unfortunately, one family that I know of went to use the playground on Friday after school and it was locked. That's been addressed. It was definitely just an error because the person who's responsible, it's not on his radar yet to unlock it every day at the end of the day. And he felt really badly about it. But it should be unlocked at the end of the day. And if you notice that it's not, just somebody let me know.
To confirm, that's the elementary school playground, not our playground.
Right, thank you. Erin's reminding me that it's the elementary school playground, not our playground. We're not unlocking ours. Especially now that we have one that can be used, that's safe and comfortable. And again, I think it's important that when people are using the, keep the gate closed so that we don't run into any issues of dogs over on the west side, which I'm keeping an eye on. There are several that are running loose that are in that area, and we don't want them in that playground at all. But otherwise, the playground is moving along a little bit. Any questions or thoughts? And again, thanks to the playground committee. If they pick this up and go with a couple of these possibilities, we may be able to get something on the old CCC too.
Could it be a possibility that someone could remove it for the 1,500 or for free and take the equipment? Is that a possibility?
So what Tom Correo explained to me, he's the groundskeeper for the big maintenance projects for the county or for the school district. And then what was explained to me by Steve Helgerson today, those things are rooted in concrete. And what the experience of the school district has been is that if you don't have somebody taking it down and removing it, what happens is somebody comes in, that you say, does anybody want this equipment? And they come in and they take the equipment, they saw it off at the base, and they don't remove the concrete pieces. They don't get everything out of there. And then if you don't get everything out of there, reinstallation is more costly. It's also dangerous because you don't know what's under there. And it was highly recommended both by the two playground reps I talked to, the three I talked to at Utah League, then again reinforced by Tom Correo and then by Steve Helgerson today, that you really want removal. Steve and Marks Powell think that the playground swing set, that those cement pieces are kind of in an angle and can be really difficult to get out. So you're going to need backhoes. That's a long answer to probably not. If somebody thought they could do it, certainly we should listen to it. But if we get to that point, we can open it up and see what we get from the community. Brant.
Just thinking through this, once he gets it out of the ground, it could be reclaimable after that too, so we could get it all out of there and then see if there's people that want part of what's left, that's another idea.
That's a good point. Anything else? Then update on the water damage from the flooding a week or so ago. Aaron and I met with our insurance adjuster and with our claims rep for the Utah Local Governments Trust. And they did a virtual walkthrough. Aaron had her own up and we walked through and she described the damage and showed them, and they were taking photos on their end. And I think kind of cutting to the chase is that last week since the water damage, I came in every day, twice a day, did a sniff test in both sides, both the senior center and our side. I really felt like our side was pretty tidy. It was dried out. I couldn't smell anything more than a slight odor of chemicals. Today, Aaron and I individually came up with the conclusion that our side still has an odor, and definitely the senior center has an odor. So the decision is, and I think I've got this right, Aaron, so correct me. They're going to send somebody in person, but they're also going to have the company that came in and did the mitigation pull up carpet. So if I understand the process correctly, they'll pull up the carpet to the point where the carpet was not damaged. So we'll have the hallway with carpet and then no carpet. Then we'll have the senior center with carpet, no carpet. In the second stage, the insurance company covers the cost of doing the entire floor, the removal of the other piece and the entire floor. That's in the repair phase. They were very interested in the drinking fountain because they have a subrogation clause in the insurance policy, and to recover costs, they have to go to any possible cause to see if they can reclaim money from that cause. I have to follow up with the county. My recollection of the history is that the drinking fountains went in at the time that addition was put on, and that they've never been changed out. Ours is, as long as I've been back here, we've never had water in ours to use it. And I know that I was told by the San Juan County that they turned theirs off when COVID started. So what they were looking at is whether there was a faulty part. And then the question was, where was it? And Aaron was able to show them the part that had failed. And then the final thing was they'd had a claim where the water pressure was too strong and it broke through a water fountain and flooded. And I said that in the past few months, I had felt like our water pressure was less in the building than, certainly not stronger. And I haven't heard anybody say it was stronger, like, maintenance or cleaning or any of us using the water back here. So I think it's just a faulty part that died. But they'll send somebody down and we'll keep moving on this, but I'll break the news to the senior center folks and to the county this week and let them know there'll be more work.
Mayor, if we can get 10 days of dry weather, it'll help a lot with this rain and stuff. It just doesn't have anywhere to go. So it'll go away eventually once we work on it.
Well, I think at some point it becomes cheaper for the insurance company to go ahead and cover the claim because it's just that industrial carpet kind of thing.
Exactly.
Which is the other piece we really need to look at in that community center fix up. The bathroom in the senior side really needs a new floor. And that would be pretty straightforward to do before they put the wallboard back up. What's that called? Not the bumper, but
Not the baseboard, it's like a commercial baseboard.
yeah, like a commercial baseboard.
Right,
There's
right.
enough space there. There's probably a half an inch, and we could do linoleum that would make it easier to clean than grouted tile. Excuse me. So, excuse me, we'll need to take a look at.
Bless you.
Thank you, I swallowed wrong. All right, any questions on that? All right, under new business. Discussion and possible vote on action on the trade of Bureau of Land Management parcels within the town of Bluff with School Institutional Trust Land Administration. It came to my attention on Monday that in the Bears Ears proclamations and the work that they're doing, the pieces of BLM land that needed to be traded out in the state of Utah needed to be identified. And so last Friday, Representative Lyman introduced into the mix of the trade outs 3 parcels within the town of Bluff to be traded to Sitla. And because I certainly felt like I didn't have all the information, it was brought to our attention by Tim Peterson of Grand Canyon Trust. Thank you, Grand Canyon Trust. So today, Aaron and I met with Tim Peterson. Josh Ewing was on the call and Jim Sayers was on the call to get more information. And I think we're still in the information gathering piece. I'll let Jim and Aaron jump on here before I go any further. Jim, anything you?
Yeah, this particular piece is being moved by this is the way I understand it. it's being moved late in the congressional session. It wasn't part of the original trade or whatever they had going before this congressional session. And Phil Lyman has, I believe, put it before the state legislature, and they've been dickering with the governor. But anyway, they're trying to get this into and passed along with a whole bunch of other trades that are being completed. And the object of the trades is to get the Sitla land out of the Bears Ears Monument and get it exclusively BLM, naturally. And to do that, they're piecing together places where the BLM is willing to trade and put in Sitla land. And we've got 3 parcels here in Bluff that Lyman has identified for everyone's benefit. And we'll just see how it goes, but it seemed like it was very early in any process of trade. It's far from a done deal. None of these things have really been brought forward anywhere except in sort of a very tentative idea way, just an idea. Is that kind of correct, the way I expressed that?
Erin, do you want to?
Yeah, and I would say we didn't get any indication whether Sitla or BLM had expressed any interest in swapping these lands. I think that should be very clear to everyone we didn't receive anything which would indicate that anyone is heavily in favor of or heavily opposed to this. But as Jim mentioned, what was brought to our attention was that these are being proposed and were identified by Phil Lyman. I see Brant has his hand up.
Brant.
I'm not really interested in increasing Sitla's presence in our town since they're so uncooperative to work with. So I just want to state that now. It's not something I'm interested in at all.
You kind of hit that's pretty much everyone's feeling. Tim characterized them as the blue rash because they're always in blue on the state maps. And I made that clear that, and others did too, that it would be a bad trade-off for the town of Bluff. We think, not in any real terms yet, but just generally speaking, it's Sitla is harder to work with than BLM, really. So that's it.
Did Representative Lyman contact us at all about this?
We have had no contact from Representative Lyman, nor have we had any contact from Sitla. And it's Tim Peterson's impression that the BLM local organization may not even be aware that this has been brought to the legislative attention. So kind of fast forwarding to, this is the first round of communications with folks. What I'd like to do is continue exploring it and bring it back for a more fleshed out discussion next week about how we approach this. Certainly writing a letter to John. So I'll back up a second. The House is controlled by the Republicans. The Natural Resource Committee is either chaired or has John Curtis on it, but it's very influential. So one of the things that came up was writing a letter to John Curtis, among other entities, and laying out why we would prefer to keep BLM versus Sitla. Approaching, BLM as well to say, we'd prefer you stay here. What I meant to ask Erin today, and I completely spaced, is we probably should put the map on the website with the information that we do have. But Tim Peterson, I really appreciate his involvement in the public lands exchanges, because but for him telling us, this was not on my radar at all. And it went through on Friday. And I don't think there's any way, unless you were doing this day-to-day activity tracking what was going on in that arena about the trade outs, that we would have known about it this early. So the fact that just one business day went by before we knew, I think is a real plus. But no, we've not been contacted by anybody. So. Anything further from the council? Any other questions? And if there are people in the community who want to talk about it, we're not taking any public comments on this or anything on the agenda, but we certainly will set aside time next week for some public comment because this is a community that it affects everybody. So if you could just hold your questions or send them to us by email, that would be great. Hopefully we'll have more information. Then moving to the next item, which is discussion of the request by Deborah Westfall and Tina Krutsky for a trailhead and parking at the Community Cultural Center. Do we have Tina or, Krutsky or Deborah Westfall on?
Deborah Westfall's raised her hand.
I see that. So Deborah, do you want to tell us what your request is?
Okay, give me a moment.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Tina is on the highway driving back from Durango. So it's just me here tonight. I wasn't really prepared to make a presentation because I sent Mayor Leppanen a paper copy of the proposal for everyone to read. So I am prepared to answer questions you might have if you have read it. But I'm not prepared to give a presentation. I apologize.
There's no reason to apologize. I put it on here so that it would not get lost in all of the requests we have. My recommendation to you and your committee and to us is we do it in a work session where you can present the information and we can ask questions.
That is very generous and kind of you. So I will look forward to presenting at a work session.
Perfect. Council, is everyone in agreement with doing it that way?
Would this
Thank you.
would this have come before the DRC, before the council?
We decided to start with the town council first, hoping to get instructions for how do we engage with UDB and the design review committee. We need to have the steps outlined for us. So I started with Mayor Leppanen and asked her, what are the next steps I take?
Thank you.
So we will talk about a work session in the next meeting, and we'll let you and your committee know when that will be. It'll be sometime, I'm sure, in the first part of March.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Then the Bluff Waterworks meeting was February 8th, 2023. And Linda and I attended that. It was pretty uneventful in terms of information. Water system's doing well. There was a little bit of discussion about why there's no posting on Utah Public Notice website for the Bluff Water Works meetings. And that's in part because some of this I got through an email. It's an enterprise fund. The Waterworks believes they don't need to post if they're doing under a certain amount of business and they don't have any tax money or public funds. It's all payment for water from people or companies. And I'm trying to locate my agenda here. Linda, was there anything that stands out in your mind?
They said it's been really quiet this winter. They're pretty happy about that. And some winters they have a lot of breaks. I don't want to jinx them, but this winter has been going well because there's less usage in the winter, plus repairs so far.
The other thing that came up was Marcus Powell asked if he would be in any of the small groups for strategic planning, and what we told him was that there'd been a decision that he would be ad hoc. We would have him come in when we're talking about water, because there's I think 2 of the 3 committees that would be impacted by Bluff Water Works operations, and so we would have him come in on those. He seemed relieved not to have to do weekly meetings. And I think there was some discussion before the meeting about the bar well, but it wasn't during the meeting. I think that covers everything on that. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Am I hearing correctly that they expressed their view that they are not responsible for transparency because of the source of their funding? To some extent, I mean, that's essentially what they're saying, is they don't have to post on the Utah. This is the basic mechanism that the state of Utah employs to ensure transparency in local entities. And they're saying that they have no responsibility for that because of their source of funding?
That's part of it, and it's the dollar amount. I can forward you the email, but basically that's why they do not post.
Well, I find that unacceptable, I have to say. I think that government entities, I need to make, if I need to make this statement, I will. I think that government entities that take any money from the public should be just ethically observe these kinds of transparency mechanisms. Thank you.
I second that, Mayor.
Any other comments or thoughts? Their next meeting is, let me get to the line. Their next meeting is Wednesday, March 8th. Maybe if the public listening to this or council feels it's important, you should come at 7 o'clock, the second Wednesday of the month at the library. All right, then the next item.
And just before you move on, I have one other comment, is that last year, probably about this time, we talked about having them come to a town council meeting once a year or something and just give an update. They said they send out their paper reports and whatnot, but it just seemed like it would help the community if they would just come and answer a few questions, give a public report.
I can raise that, excuse me, I can raise that in the meeting on the 8th, but it is helpful. I think if people have questions, if they attend the meetings, because they do take public comment and they answer questions. So it's always helpful, but you're right, we talked about doing that, so I will definitely raise it and see if somebody's willing and interested in coming to. I can specifically invite them to a date. I'll find a date or two. All right, anything further? Then I mentioned about the discussion of written policy for preparation of agendas and supporting documents earlier. I just think it would be helpful for us to get back on track, as Linda said, with following the schedule. It certainly helps Aaron and Linda, where Aaron will only need to do one packet versus updating the packet, and then, because then we're back in the same place we were when I just send everything out. People have got to go to multiple emails to find what we're talking about. And there was a request from a community member to have the packet on the website, which is a very good idea, but we're not quite there yet. So that's something that Aaron and I have been talking about. Like I said, I want to get this policy in place, and then that's probably the next step, is where else does this packet get posted? But just a reminder to everybody, particularly like what we're spending money on is all in the minutes. It's posted. Our financials are posted every month, so you can see where we're spending money. Any questions or thoughts on that policy work? San Juan County Commission meeting was February 7th, 2023. This is number 9. I went up in person and attended it. I had looked at the agenda and I noticed that item 17 was consideration and approval of San Juan County Building Resilient Inclusive Communities Amendment number 2, and it was being presented by Dr. Sonata, who's the director. And I was planning on just listening to the meeting and doing a public comment, because that's Ginny Burns' BRIC, B-R-I-C grant that she receives as a pass-through our entity to the food pantry. And it's up for renewal. Rebecca Benally had indicated that she had received Ginny's renewal letter for expressing an interest in another amount of money to be able to keep things moving with the food pantry. But I think it was the day before, on Monday, I received a written request by Dr. Sonata to weigh in on that grant and provide some support. I think it's easier if you're in person, so I went up to the commission meeting so that I could make an in-person statement about the service that the food pantry provides to the community and to the town of Bluff, and talked a little bit about the work that Ginny does. The real push for this was definitely Dr. Sonata. He is so skilled at putting together a description of what someone does, and he was so affirmative of the food pantry and of Ginny Burns' work. And he talked about his history with her and her background in diabetes and how she puts all that together for the food pantry. It was really compelling. Like, I'd have written a check for 10 grand if I'd been sitting there. It just was really good. And the grant was approved, so she will have another chunk of $10,000 to work in the 2023 calendar year. The other thing that was of interest, and I'm sorry I missed this, I didn't notice they had a work session. And in their work session, which was at 9:00, they covered land use training. They had a speaker come in and they did, I don't know how much of that time from 9 to 11 was land use. I caught the last few minutes of it. I think it's worth all of us taking a look at. That would be February 7th. Did I say the 8th? Yeah, I made a typo in the agenda. The meeting was February 7th, the same day as ours. But the work session in particular sounds like it was really well done on land use, and it talked about water. That's where I came in, as in water and waterproofs, et cetera. So I think it's really, the timing was good. I'm hoping that I'll be able to find the time to listen to it, but it was the February 7th work session. And let me see if there's anything else that stood out. Nope. It was all, it was all pretty routine approval of contracts and budgets and money. It's clear that San Juan County is culling through their budget to come up with as much money as they can. I will be meeting with Mac McDonald to go over our outstanding election bills because I believe they're in error. It's been shifted to him now to go over them with me instead of with Lyman Duncan and his staff. So at some point, Mac and I will get together. Any questions on the San Juan County Commission? I think it's worth going up there and introducing ourselves individually. And I think it would be worth an invitation to them to join us at a meeting, kind of like we did with the last round of new commissioners. Then I also met with Ron Nielsen, the superintendent for the school district, and Tom Correo on February 7th. And I had a number of agenda items, starting with the question from the parents in town: why is the new Bluff Elementary School playground not open to the public when Blanding and Monticello's are? And I asked that question and said, qualified it with, I haven't been to Blanding or Monticello, but I assume that the information is correct, that those are open to the public. And Superintendent Nielsen said, yes, they are open to the public. By state law, Bluffs should be open as well. And he said that sometimes it's difficult, and I think that's probably my word, sometimes you can't get the administrators of the school building, meaning the principals, to get on board with certain policies. So after school hours, the playground will be open. There was a little klafooey on Friday, but I think once they get this in the routine of at the end of the day, unlock the playground, it should be open. I talked with Tom Correo. I talked to Superintendent Nielsen about our non-compete clause to be sure that if we wanted to do something like a daycare or provide space for a daycare, that would not fall within the non-compete. It is in there as an exception, but I wanted to hear it. And then the other was, I had asked him about doing trainings for adults, whether that would fall into it. And then the third thing I asked him about the contract was, if we wrote a grant and submitted it and got money for what's called an outdoor classroom, would that phrasing be problematic and trigger anything? And he said, as long as it's playground equipment, they won't pose any kind of a problem. But I wanted to cover those bases before we spend a lot of time on them. Then the superintendent left for another meeting, and Tom Correo and I talked about the playground demolition aspect. We talked about kind of just how things were going in general. And then he said, if there's anything he could do to help us with putting together playground equipment lists or quotes, he has all the information. He'd be, happy to help us. So it was a good meeting. Any questions?
Thanks for the hard work, Mayor. Good job.
It's always nice to work with them. They're so incredibly helpful. Then number 11, if you remember last year, we teamed up to work with the Bluff Fort to have an Easter egg hunt, which they provided. We provided some eggs through the food pantry. They provided some eggs that they purchased. then the Fort folks dyed the eggs. I think that the Girl Scouts may have dyed some eggs. And then there were some treats that the fort put together to put in little bags, and then they had the Easter egg hunt, and they would like to do that again. I, of course, have failed to ask on what day, but I'm assuming it would be like last year, the Saturday before the Sunday of Easter. And I don't know when Easter is. So.
Motion to approve that, Mayor, if you need a motion.
Well, I do need a motion, yep.
Second.
Any discussion, comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then I will get back with the fort. Thank you. Number 12, there's an outdoor recreation show in, okay, I'm going to say Provo, of course. I think it's Provo. Okay, I'm going to apologize. Switching computers has just thrown me in my, my organization is not perfect. Not that it ever is. It's in a couple of months, maybe October, but we had Spencer Wade go to a one-day program. This is a 2-day, but it's an opportunity to meet with a lot of people who are doing outdoor programs and grants and information. And it would require probably a 2-night stay up there and the attendance fee. And I just wanted to get a sense. I think he has to, or people have to be registered, I believe, sometime this month, and I want to say the 17th of the month. Let me just.
Mayor, I'm in favor of doing this, and we could go ahead and preliminarily approve it if the council feels that way, or get more specific numbers and then approve it next week.
Now let me grab another book. I might have actually written that down. I'm more concerned about the deadline. Okay, it's September 6th and September 7th in Ogden. And the registration has to be done by the 19th. So we don't meet again. So it would roughly be the 2 nights getting up there and attending. So if we're going to do it, we should approve it tonight.
Did he provide the documents that we usually ask for travel expenses, like an estimate of?
No, because it came up in a different conversation, in a conversation that I initiated, and I didn't have that. But I think it's worthwhile, but I'm sorry, I don't have the estimates of anything.
It's probably going to be $500 at the top. And I'll make a motion to approve up to that amount right now for that.
And then does he report back to us? Is that, I don't remember him reporting last year. I don't.
He did. And it was the one day that he reported on. He went to one up in Moab, I want to say. It was a one day. Is there a second?
I second.
I will. Well, any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, and I'll get back with Spencer and get the details, and I had all the fee and everything somewhere, but of course I've managed to lose that memo to myself.
I think the 500 is a reasonable top limit, and it might be less than that.
So I don't have any other. Does anybody else have another?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
There was one other that Star Party that is a big, a plus for our dark sky designation has been postponed. It'll be March 1st.
Happy Valentine's, everybody.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
That's
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Happy Valentine's Day. Thanks
Yeah,
all.
very,